1. We're live, Gold and Black Live, Triple X. President of the university doesn't get a whole lot better than that. And the fact that this is a repeat performance. A couple of years you joined us here. You've had lunch. Life could be a lot worse.
They took away my root beer is the only problem.
They're bringing it back.
Oh, okay.
I know that.
Okay.
I know they're bringing it back. In fact, Greg in the back is quickly motioning, and here it is. So
now life is perfect.
Welcome to Gold and Black Live, and we're glad to have President Mitch Daniels here. We've been talking about fitness and everything else. We're going to talk about football and new athletic directors and the direction that he sees for Purdue athletics down the road. Obviously, the Boilermakers have a game tomorrow against Nevada. Every game's an opportunity for a program that's struggling, and yet, it's been frustrating. Obviously, Purdue's not been able to turn that corner just yet. But what are you seeing on the inside from your perspective with Purdue football?
Well, I see some great people working very hard. I see, a coaching staff. The players seem to have a lot of faith in and affection for. Obviously, a high character program. We care about all that. Who isn't frustrated? I can't get it out of my mind. We had over 500 yards offense in the Cincinnati game. We had more first downs. Time of possession was even. One obvious problem. And so not to minimize that, but you do ask yourself, that game could have easily gone another way. And so the next, I'd say 3 weeks are really, really key, and I'm keyed up in hopes that this will be the breakthrough.
Now, for football games, you have your moments where you're in the stands, but you're also, obviously you've got friends, donors, people that you work with out down the line. Where do you spend most of the time during watching games?
Well, I've got a certain drill.
Yeah.
I always say the way I do it, football is a full contact sport. Yeah. So I usually start in the, I don't know what we call it, the beer garden.
Yeah.
At the end, I go in there and thank people.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah. Well, I'm just
I know.
playing host. You understand? But I like to go in there and see how people are enjoying it. It was an experiment. It's I think succeeding. But I go in and thank them for coming. I usually make a complete tour of the stadium. Again, just saying hi to people and. More often than not, I'll arrive at the student section and watch the first couple, invite myself in and watch the first couple of series there. And then I work my way back. And we'll always have guests upstairs. So usually the rest of the first half I'll be up there. Third quarter we do Where's Mitch? I'm back down in the stands for a while. And then, sometimes, again, back to the suites. But up and down, all around, and it's I have a lot of fun. I have a lot more fun when we're winning.
When you've been an organization person your entire professional life, been a part of successful organizations. When you look at this thing, what's something that you see, boy, from an organizational standpoint, or if you were going to give that pregame pep talk, you'd tell these guys, here's what you can do to maybe take it to the next level. Is it as simple as just winning, in your view?
Well, that's in the end, life's about results.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the endeavor is, and so I don't have anything profound to add to that. But I do get the sense that we're a more veteran team. There've been a lot of positive things said about the coordinators. Maybe about simplifying the offense and all that sort of thing. And I've heard players talk about that in very favorable terms. So I have to I'm no expert on this. I have to put my faith in that. But our new athletic director, I think, has, of course, the responsibility, but also a persuasive way of talking about this. And it's all about high standards and expectations. We've all got those. But he also says what he wants to see is a clear direction. And he'll be the judge if we have that or don't.
You look at Mike Babinski and the hiring process. He's a guy that I've had a couple chances to be in front of him. You like him. Initially, he's a very conversational person. You said, and you and Mike Berghoff both, that early in the process that was kind of your reaction to him in terms of when you met him, and then you came back and saw him a couple more times before you made the hire. What impressed you most about him in terms of what his skill set and what he brings?
Well, he clearly had his act together. He had a track record that says that we weren't misled about that. I did like the guy. I think I told you once before, he was the very first of many, many folks that I personally took part in interviewing.
Yeah.
He was first, and I thought, gee, you know, maybe you're too easily impressed. And we saw some really impressive people later on in the process. But I kept thinking, you know, that Babinski guy, he's not pretentious.
Yeah.
But he's very businesslike. He's friendly, but you know he's tough. And it just seemed like the right blend, and I just thought he'd fit us very, very well. And so far, I think everybody feels that way.
Yeah, and you have a guy too that you get asked a lot about competitiveness and what it takes to compete. You're a folksy, friendly person as well, and yet you got to have that edge. How do you see that in the interview process, where you know that a guy that is as friendly as and pleasant as a Mike Babinski is has that competitive edge?
Oh, he just comes off him, I think, and he talked about his own athletic career and places he'd been. He can sort of pick it up that way. He'd made some tough decisions, and he'd made some great hires. And there's so much goes into that job. When I told the board trustees that Morgan was going to retire, I said, get ready, because finding a replacement for me will be a lot easier than this. This is a complicated job. And but I think he'd made some great hires and some tough fires.
Yeah.
And whatever else is in that job, identifying coaching talent and holding it accountable is probably number one.
Morgan Burke, obviously, as you said, 23 years in that position plus, and a guy that is really credited for being among other things, but putting together a good template of how to run an athletic department. It makes it somewhat easier for a guy like Mike Babinski, at least from a nuts and bolts perspective, to take it over.
Yeah, no, Mike would be the first to tell you. I mean, he's come into other kinds of situations, turnaround situations. I think it was an attraction, not just for him, but for a lot of the people. We had some big-name people wanted to talk to us about coming to Purdue. And listening to them, I could tell part of it was they knew they weren't coming into a wreck. It's a program with high standards. It's a program that's financially sound, very sound. And it's a program that's winning, much more than not. So, there's some obvious, as you said, targets opportunity, but it's not like you got to rebuild the ship from end to end.
Now, you've always said about the student experience, and it's all about the student experience, whether it be from a cost perspective, but also the value of what they get. College football is a big part of that, and yet students have been, in relative terms, I think, pretty supportive of the first two games. They've had pretty good attendance there from that standpoint. And even in your tenure here, has that role of college athletics and how you look at it changed or morphed into anything different over time?
Well, I'd like to see even more student involvement, to tell you the truth. I nagged Morgan a little bit about pricing, and they made some, I think, really good moves. And I've talked to a lot of students. The $99 package has proven pretty popular. And we may need to improve that even a little more, because on the one hand, it can be such a fun and enriching part of an overall experience. I would like even more students to take it up. And secondly, as we've discussed, I always think one student is worth 2 or 3 adults in terms of the environment of the game. So I'm constantly encouraging students as I meet them to come on out to support all our student athletes, and I hope that I'm certainly going to talk to Mike about finding ways to make that happen.
The question we often get is about this, and it's for lack of a better term, the windfall, but certainly the money that television brings to college sports and universities. The new Big Ten contract, and your philosophy of how much needs to be shared with the university, or do you think that's a decision that Mike Babinski's, as I think Mike Berghoff said, needed to build that case for when he needs funds? How do those align in your view?
Right. Well, as you know, even under the current situation, Purdue has had one of the strongest financial conditions of anywhere, and this predates me.
Yeah.
It has been repatriating some money to the university. $1 million or so a year.
Yeah.
So not a lot in the grand scheme of a $75 million budget, but it has already been contributing something. And under the new contract, there will be more funds. You know, some people misunderstand. I mean, we all want to see a full stadium for football, but football is still paying its way, plus paying for almost everything else.
Yeah.
And when you throw in the fact that now our revenues are so much more dependent on TV than ever, and more than on ticket sales, etc.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of flexibility, but that's what allows you to build a $65 million training center, and you know, who knows what else we'll need. You know, Morgan should get a lot of credit and always be remembered. He's leaving behind something else that's positive, which is apparently one of the finest collections of facilities. Candidate after candidate for that job, and including the search firm folks who helped us, came away saying, wow, your facilities are not only first rate, but they're close together, they're well conceived, you know, convenience of the athletes and the fans. And so that's part of Morgan's legacy. And Mike knows that whatever else we might want to do with funds that are coming, on a relative basis, we won't need that much for that purpose.
The competitive nature of being a fan, you're the president of the university, but you know the players, you know the student athletes, you know the coach, you know you want success. Do you find yourself when things aren't going as well? Are you a tough to bite your lip from a fan standpoint? Are you a swear at the TV type guy, or what? In private, yeah. You can tell, you got to give your private moments about it.
If Sherry were here, she'd say, "I am not fun to live with on the day of a loss." You know, I do take it hard. I mean, number one, I'm just a fan like everybody else. Number two, I feel, you know, an investment, and I do know, not all, but I know a lot of our players and coaches. I know how much they care, so I'm sort of upset for them. And but you know, better days are coming where we're not strong already. I mean, we just had all in across 20 programs, one of the best years in school history, and we got a top 10 volleyball team. I think we're going to have a top 10 or 15 men's basketball team. And a lot of the Olympic sports extremely strong too. So as soon as football joins the parade, we're all going to feel good. You know, I had forgotten until somebody wrote it recently that Purdue had 16 straight losing years before Joe Tiller got here. So it's not like we haven't.
Purdue's had ups and downs.
Had a couple of valleys. That's a long down.
Yeah.
That's a lot longer than what we've had so far. So we'll be back in strong condition a long time before 16.
You know, I know we've talked before about the days you first became acquainted with Purdue Sports in the days of Leroy Keys and where Purdue was in a consistent top 15 program. It is possible. I mean, that's you have to look at that.
You know, I went over, as I do every year, and at the first fall meeting of our organization of team captains and team leaders and all the staff and coaches and so forth. And I said to them what I always say about maintaining our standards, the things we're proud of, conduct, academics, and all the rest. But I also said, look, we're active in 20 sports, and in every one of those sports, I can point to programs that are winning the right way. Yeah. Of course, there's cheaters. Yeah. And I said, anybody can win if you cheat. And I don't think anybody here wants to do that. So I said, I hope you don't see it as a burden that we do expect our students to be real athletes to be real students. I hope you don't see it as a burden that we do insist on certain conduct norms. But I said, how much more proud are we when we win the right way? And every sport here, don't say you can't do it, because we can all point to programs that do it.
You look at Mike Dubinsky, and as you set up and work with him on goals and what are reasonable expectations for him. Does it take a guy in that position 6 months to a year to get going, or is it important that he wins the hearts and minds front and center? Or is that an impossible question to answer?
I think it's possible for him to answer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to answer for him. I'll just say I think he's off to a great start. I hear every echo I hear is a positive one. And Morgan's been really good about trying to make a professional transition, but a quick one.
Yeah.
And so Mike's fully in the saddle now, and but he's a pro. He'll know exactly how fast to move on what.
Yeah. Morgan's role will, and he's talked about this, likely diminish over time, even though he's still going to be involved in some fashion. I mean, do you see that down the road for him?
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly going to be a valued counselor, and that'll be the case as far as I'm concerned, even after he's off the formal payroll. He's going to take some special projects on. One of them has the long-term decision about our south end zone.
Yeah. What would you like to see there?
Don't know yet.
Yeah.
Don't know yet. I mean, something cool.
Yeah.
Probably something different.
Yeah.
But a lot will have to go into that. We'll have to try to figure out really how many people are going to be going to sporting events of any kind 10 and 20 years from now. There's some trends and they're not up.
Yeah.
And so maybe you have, I don't know, maybe a slightly smaller total attendance, but a really neat venue with some features that are we didn't used to have.
Arguably, and it may not be completely true, but it'd be hard to argue from a exposure standpoint. Drew Brees is hard to beat as a Purdue alum. If you had a room full of those guys, you'd be in good shape in a lot of situations. What about your relationship with him and his relationship? He continues to be very supportive of this football program. He's been supportive of Darrell Hazel. But how important is that in your view?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we've got a lot of great role models out there. A lot of them still active in professional sports. But you can't top what Drew Brees means to us. He just personifies, not just that he's one of the great people ever to play at his position, but everything about him. The kind of family man he is. Everything. He makes us so proud. I feel like I've gotten to know him pretty well.
Yeah.
And you know, he is, as you say, he's relentlessly upbeat and positive. He and Brittany have been generous, not just with their time, with their own funds, and we are so lucky to have him. I hope he plays another 5 years just because of the exposure we get.
Now, we don't bring politics into anything here, but I always said Drew Brees would be a great president of the United States. And since he's over 35, he's eligible right now. He could just throw his hat in the ring. But in all seriousness,
if we could get him nominated, I promise you'd be elected.
Yeah,
this year.
I think you're right. What do you see for a guy like that, though? Because he can do anything. I mean, you've gotten to know him well, but he can run his foundation. He's obviously doing the charitable things, but I think he's an opportunity to be a great leader as well.
You know, I've never asked him because he's still.
Yeah, he's busy.
Concerned, he's still at the top of his game.
Yeah.
And second, I want him to play a few more years and keep piling up records and building a Hall of Fame career. Just because I'm his fan, and obviously I think it spills over a little bit on Purdue. So I really haven't given him much thought, and I bet he hasn't either. But no, you're right. I could easily see him he'd be a success because of his smarts, his character. If it's business, I want to invest.
Yeah, I do too.
You know, and if it's maybe it's in the world of sports, he'd be an instant success.
Well, we're sitting right here, right off of State Street, and one of the State Street project may, when you look back at your time, be one of your biggest projects and hopefully crowning achievements. We have a lot of questions about what role that can have in the world of recruiting, and the fact of you're trying to get to high-end Division I athletes here. How do you view that?
Well, I hope it does help.
Yeah.
We certainly think of it as a recruiting tool when we think of faculty and we think of students.
Yeah.
If it comes together the way the artist renderings suggest, what is already, I think, one of the prettier campuses in our peer group is going to become much more so. And this whole area here and all the way through campus will be spectacular. So, just as we believe it'll help us attract brilliant teachers, top students, if that's true, it'll also catch the eye of some athletes. You know, the kind of athletes we want to have all have multiple options, and it's got to get down to tiebreakers. And I'm for anything that might break the tie in our direction.
Triple X legend. It's going to be interesting to see how all this comes together over time, and it is a mind-boggling project for those of us that kind of look at it from afar. All right, you're going to see. We talked about men's basketball. Matt Painter's team, 18, should be able to compete in the top 12 or so this year. But the electricity in Mackey Arena and trying to transfer that energy all around campus, that's one place where you know that it makes a difference with the student body in terms of what's generated there.
I love taking people to Mackey, particularly if it's their first visit. Everybody comes away and says, now that's the way basketball venue should be, that's the way the atmosphere should be. And yeah, I mean, we're all excited about this year. I haven't met him yet, but people say that Carson Edwards just...
You're going to feel the fire on him now.
Played,
he's really good, though.
Yeah, that he had a great trip to Spain.
Yeah.
And that he's probably going to make a prompt contribution. I know that Coach Painter's working really, really hard on the next recruiting class. It'll be very, very important. There's a lot of great talent out there, a lot of it in Indiana, and I hope we get our share because the program's got great momentum, and I hope that translates into more great players like the ones we're going to watch this year.
All right, last question, just on your, you get asked this, and yet you're signed through 2020. Your energy level is still appears extremely strong. What keeps you focused on running this university to the best of your ability for the next few years?
That's easy. We've got a whole lot of initiatives. Most of them academic, of course, but State Street is another one. A whole lot of them that I think are, 50 caliber in their potential importance to the future of the school. To become the premier engineering college in the country, the new Polytechnic Institute, our computer science growth, the research park investments we're making, the innovation district that the State Street project is so closely tied to, and most of those, really all of those, are due to come to fruition on or around 2019, our 150th anniversary. Yeah. So that's easy to point to that. Yeah. It must be like pointing to a Rose Bowl, or pointing to a conference championship. You know where the destination is, and you just want to arrive there successfully. And so that's what is driving all of us. We've got our teeth in all those projects, and it's like the rest of life. It's all about implementation and results. All
right, we have held Mitch Daniels. We had a nice conversation before the show, but he's got a couple other appointments for the rest of the day. You're loaded with Triple X energy after a sandwich and a root beer and a half. You're ready to go.
I think I'm going to take the root beer with me.
All right. Carrie can get you a to-go cup. I know that. So we want to thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll look forward to seeing you in Ross-Age Stadium tomorrow.
Well, Alan, let me thank you. Your publication, your service, I should say, is just spectacular. It is the gold standard. There's nothing.
We're not paying them for this, but go ahead, keep going.
No, seriously. I open it the minute it comes. The product's getting better and better, and nobody needs to get their information. If they're reading you, they know what they need to know.
Well, that's Brian, Kyle, and Stacy as well, and much more than I, but we appreciate that very much, and that's kind of why we do it. So we look forward to it. All right, we're going to bring Kyle and Stacy to break down Purdue, Nevada, and then I'll have Brian Newbern on for segment 3. We'll take a short 2-minute break and come back for more on Gold and Black Live.